All right, welcome back. It really hasn't been too long since I filmed the previous video, but I haven't uploaded it yet. So I guess I'll just upload them together, and it will be a double bill. Okay. Um, I've seen a few things since last time. I said towards the end that I'll try to watch more physical media than I had previously to the previous update. And I have done that. I've been watching things every day. This one actually I haven't seen in the past week. Bleak Moments. I saw this a few months ago and I left it on my coffee table because there was a special feature here, right here. Interview with Mike Leigh from 2019, filmed after a screening of his 1976 film Nuts in May. And that's part of his BFI TV movies, which I have that box set on DVD. And so I just figured I'll put this aside and I'll watch Nuts in May and then I'll listen to that talk, which was a good idea because he ends up talking about the characters and so on. There's some moments that I would have missed if I hadn't seen the film. But that box set, I still have a few films, or quite a few films left in that box set, so I will not be talking about that now, but I will say that Nuts in May was absolutely brilliant. Bleak Moments is quite brilliant at times. It's a film, and Mike Leigh says this himself, but it's not really that difficult to figure out. It's a film about unfulfilled potential. The film, I mean, he's known as making fairly nihilistic, misanthropic films. I mean, Naked is known for that. Nuts in May kind of felt that way as well. I don't think this is very nihilistic. This is just, it's kind of realistic in a way. It is bleak, but there's also some comfort between the characters, and he doesn't sneer at his characters exactly. Maybe he doesn't usually. Maybe he does that occasionally. I don't really know, but he seems to be rather sympathetic towards these characters who exist in their own little bubble with a lot of meetings that don't really go according to their wish with other people. As you can see, the people here, apart from the main actress and her sister, who is mentally handicapped, they are sort of separated or isolated from each other, and that's sort of what the film feels like. But somehow it doesn't really feel that depressing to me. It's a pretty moving film in many ways, but it is very minimal. There's one long sequence concerning this unfilled potential between two characters meeting, where something could happen, but it just goes on, and it's absolute agony. Anyway, Hungarian Masters. This one I a little bit disappointed with this purchase, to be honest. I don't buy everything from second run, but I would buy everything if I could, because they are interesting enough. But this box set with 3 films here, you can see the directors and the titles in English and in Hungarian. They're not really my cup of tea. Merry-Go-Round is the first one I saw. That's the earliest one from 1950 something. It says on the spines, 1955. Basically a film, a quiet little film, a small film about forbidden love, if you will. Pretty moving film. I like that one the best. Current makes me think of L'Avventura by Antonioni a little bit, from 1963, because you have these friends playing around. They're sort of at the very tail end of their childhood. They're allowing themselves to be children maybe one last time before they have to grow up and maybe get jobs and so on. So that's a nice idea. And then one of them goes missing when they're playing around on the beach area, whatever. It's about the missing person. But then the other characters they end up feeling quite self-indulgent or a bit narcissistic or kind of navel-gazing or whatever, and it starts to become about them rather than about the person who's missing. And you could make that into an interesting idea, but it just the characters weren't really that sympathetic, and I struggled to care after a while. But the first half or the first third or whatever, it was quite beautifully filmed, and a lot of it is beautifully filmed. There's a bonus feature which I prefer to the main film, and the bonus feature is a short film called Tisha Autumn Sketches, which is filmed around the same area, but it's more of an essay-like documentary film, which I thought was better than the main attraction. Agnus Dei by Miklos Yangsho seems to be one of his least maybe known films out of the ones that are now currently available. I've seen one of his films before. They're very stilted, kind of very carefully choreographed, kind of lifeless, which I suppose inherent to the beautiful cinematography and the beautiful landscapes on which he usually films, based on the two films I've seen from him. The other one I can't really remember the title, to be perfectly honest. There is some kind of inherent emotion in these choreographed scenes, but the characters are so empty of life and will to live, it seems. At least in this film, or that's the wrong way of putting it, but they're so, everything is so calibrated that I have a hard time becoming invested, and I really, it doesn't happen that often anymore, but I was absolutely bored out of my mind watching this, and that's a good thing that doesn't happen frequently anymore, but it does happen occasionally, and that's probably my own limitation and not the film's fault. But I really was struggling with that film. I will give his films a third attempt, I guess, because the first one I saw, while I didn't dislike it quite as I didn't really dislike Agnus Dei, but I think I had a worse experience with this one than the previous one that I saw like 7 years ago, I think. So I hope that whatever I can get my hands on in the future from his films, most likely from Second Round, because they put out quite a few, I hope that's going to be a better experience for me. Another Second Run release, Coach to Vienna, a Czech film. This is so in the last days of World War II, a young Czech widow whose husband has been executed by Nazi occupiers is forced to transport 2 German soldiers to the Austrian border, and they use this carriage. It's called, yeah, I mean, the Coach to Vienna, or the Carriage to Vienna, as I think it's also known. It's a very simple film, without language almost, and the ending felt unfulfilling to me. Didn't feel that nuanced, but the journey is it's quite beautiful, and as you can see on the cover, it's that always happens in my videos, stumbling over my words. It's a beautiful location, even though it's pretty barren somehow, in a way, with this forest and the tall trees. But it is a beautifully shot film. It's not a great film, but it's a good film. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, BFI release. I really like Don Siegel. I bought this sort of on a whim because I found it cheap on CD-ON for like £10 or something, and I thought that was a good enough deal. And this is a really cool film. It's grown on me after I've seen it. I saw this about a week ago, maybe, or maybe just a few days ago. I don't really know for sure. It seems to be about the reluctance to conform to this hive mind of everyone else. Like, they want to include you in their club, if you will, but you have a desire to be your own person and not to be sucked into all of this mindless activity that everyone else is up to, you know. That's sort of what it seems to be about. There's been, I mean, watching this alien forces coming down to take over people, turning them to some lifeless, although it would appear a more happy or a more content person, that there could be a very obvious political allegory there in the 1950s, you know, the Cold War, paranoia and so on, but apparently that's not what it's about. But if you want to make it about that, it's completely possible and quite obvious, but apparently that's not what the intention was. But whatever interpretation you add on, I think there's a lot of fun to be had with a film like this, because it is quite vague. Like, what actually is happening when these people are turned? Why are they turned? What's the film trying to say? yeah, so I really enjoyed that film. Now this film, I'm not gonna be able to do justice, but I saw this a couple days ago, 2046 by Wong Kar-wai. I was so incredibly taken by this. One of those films that I couldn't let it go, so I just had to rewind it and just have it on a second time. But it's a sequel of sort, or it is a sequel to In the Mood for Love, but I don't think you have to see that to be able to appreciate this. Um, um, so basically, in the Mood for Love, it's he let the love of his life go. Right, I haven't seen that in a while, but it's about a man who sort of he has regret about his past that is coloring his present in a very profound way. And the film uses, I mean, I could not begin to dissect all the themes here. I'm not, intellectually equipped for that. I mean, that's not false modesty, that's genuinely the truth. But what I feel when I watch it is quite powerful. And I could sit down and make more of a proper attempt at this, but I don't have enough time right now. But oh, I thought about this the other day because I have all these thoughts in my mind when I see a film. Like, okay, I'll say that about the film when I'm on my bike or whatever. I'll go through a few things in my head instead of cycling in silence, whatever. And I did that with this, but now I can't seem to tap into it, or it's gonna take too long. So I apologize for that. Maybe I can come back to that in the future and talk more extensively about it, because I was profoundly moved by it. Yeah, anyway. The Gods Must Be Crazy 1 and 2. I've had this several times, a few times. I bought this on, it's hard to resist for $1 or whatever in a secondhand store. And I've sold it a few times, but this one I've kept. And I would not have seen this film by myself, but maybe at some point, but not now. But I had my dad over, which I never do. But we were watching a film right here in the couch on my television, obviously, and we were trying to find a film to watch. And it's when you have so many choices, it's hard to find something that makes sense. But he saw this in the pile. He kind of thought, I think I've seen that, but I think we need something funny. Do you want to see that? And I said, that's fine. And we had fun with it. It's not a great film, but it is a pretty funny slapstick film. There's a really good sequence, or a set piece, a series of sequences, I suppose, with this car which has non-functioning brakes, and the engine doesn't really work, so you can't really turn it off because you might not be able to turn it back on again. And there's a sequence on this slanted kind of road, and then on the uphill there's like a gate that he needs to open, and he needs to find a way to do that without the car, sliding down or whatever, going down. And it sounds kind of bland maybe when I put it like that, but they actually were able to work that out in a couple different sequences that really worked. And that, I think that was the biggest laugh we had in the film, a particular sequence when he's picked up this woman, and then they're gonna go back, and the car is he opens up the gate, and then the car is kind of sliding down that slant, but he already knows by then from experience that on the other side there's another slant. It goes up like that. So he closes the gate, right, and the car slides down, and she's kind of distraught by this, or she's wondering what the fuck is going on. but he's like, oh, don't you worry, the car is coming back. Anyway, it's hopeless reciting comedic scenes, obviously, but I just had to do that because that scene I really thought was quite funny. But I think that's all I have time for today. Trying to keep the videos a bit shorter these days. But that really was everything I had that was of any kind of interest to me anyway. We'll do this as I always do. A little overview of the few films I spoke about. So one phenomenal film and a few good films and a couple disappointing films. But overall, pretty good little stack of movies. And yeah, thank you for watching as always. I will be back in the future sometime. Bye bye.